Ladies and gentlemen, sports fans alike, welcome to another edition of Bill Swerski Sports Talk Chicago. One of the couple, two, three best podcasts around. So sit back, grab yourself a cold one and a Polish sausage, park your keister in the French room, and listen to Bill Swerski Sports Talk Chicago.
In Chicago, you know that all sports rock. The Bears, Hawks, Bulls, Cubs, and Sox. Pick your favorite, you can choose, as long as the Packers lose. For everything you need to know, it's Bill Swerski Sports Talk Chicago. Bill Swerski Sports Talk Chicago.
Hey everybody, welcome to another edition of Bill Swerski Sports Talk Chicago. This is your hosts Alex and Sean. On this episode, we are going to be talking the absolute disaster that is the Chicago Bears. We're also going to be talking a little hockey, a little basketball, and probably some more. But first, I'd like to thank our sponsor, the Rockford Ice Hogs. If you're not familiar with the Rockford Ice Hogs, they're the AHL minor league affiliate of the Chicago Blackhawks. What does that mean for you? You get to see the stars of tomorrow today at family-friendly, affordable prices. The season is upon us. We are here. So don't sleep. Head on over to icehogs.com. Get yourself a hat, shirt, jersey, sign up for season tickets and more. Tell them Swerski Sports sent you. Alex, how are you doing, my friend?
Well, Halloween was good. Halloween was fun. Fun weekend. I can't say that it was a great week for Chicago sports outside maybe the Bulls. So yeah, I mean, I'll leave it at that.
So let's talk Bears. So the Bears were on a losing streak going into this game. The 49ers were on a 4-game losing streak going into this game. I feel like they're a much better team than their record showed.
Mm-hmm.
But, you're like, okay, these are two fairly matched teams in Soldier Field. This should be a competitive game. And at halftime, you're like, okay, the Bears haven't played extremely well, but they haven't punted, and they have the lead going into halftime, and they've kept the 49ers out of the end zone, and you have to feel confident. And I think most Bears fans felt fairly confident that they were going to come out with a victory in this game. Is that fair?
Yeah, I did.
I was like, you know what? They didn't play well. They're still got the lead. I'm like, I think they're going to put a couple good drives together. And then, I mean, even going into the fourth quarter, you're like, well, we still have the lead, even though it was, you knew that it was going to be gone in a couple of plays into the fourth. But even going into the fourth quarter, you were like, all right, the Bears are still up. They're still in this. And the fourth quarter, the wheels just fell off the fucking train.
Yeah, Sean, I think you're going to look back at this game, and I think obviously we're going to talk in detail about all of this. You're going to look back at this game. I'm going to look back at this game at least, and I think a lot of other Bears fans too are. We're going to at least look back at this and be like, you know what? We saw Justin Fields grow. With that said, in the moment, I could not help but be kind of pissed off because, as you alluded to earlier, this was a game I thought the Bears were going to win this game. I really did. I knew Khalil Mack was out. We all knew Khalil Mack was out. And if we're going to question Khalil Mack's importance, rewatch that game. They could not touch Jimmy Garoppolo. Couldn't touch him. And even so, it's like, okay, we got Robert Quinn back. He's played very well this year. Akeem Hicks back. I mean, that's two big things right there. And we didn't expect perfection from the defense because it was a little banged up, obviously. But you still thought you had enough guys on the field on defense to be able to at least contain Jimmy Garoppolo. And they just would eat big chunks of yards. And by the fourth quarter, they were moving the ball like they were the team playing Bishop Sycamore. Like it wasn't even contested. They were doing it with ease. It looked like they could be half asleep and they would still be marching down the field. And like I said, you don't expect perfection when you have guys injured, but that, regardless of how many points you gave up, in my opinion, that was the worst defensive performance we've seen from this unit in the Matt Nagy era. Even though he wasn't coaching on Sunday, that was the worst defensive performance we have seen. I know we saw LA Rams. We saw that game. We saw how wide open those guys were. Those were more shockingly bad, but from start to finish, Sean, the only reason they didn't get into the end zone in the first half was because you saw some misplays and dropped passes by the 49ers. If their kicker doesn't miss and they don't drop a few passes, they would have had the lead going into halftime. There wasn't one moment in that game where I thought the defense looked good. But I do agree with you that even in the third quarter, I thought they were going to win because I felt like, okay, our defense hasn't played well, but Justin Fields looks so much better. He's doing some really good things here. And I'm like, okay, this defense, it may be sucking, but I feel like they're going to make at least one big play or two. And they didn't. They really didn't.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of shit talk to be had about the Bears defense. The tackling was poor. There was absolutely no pass rush at all.
None.
And
none.
It's Khalil Mack is an absolute ultimate, cog in that line. And because they should have been able to get to Jimmy Garoppolo and they didn't. They absolutely didn't. Even Roquan Smith's missing tackles. You had Eddie Jackson missing tackles until he got hurt 2 seconds into the game.
Yeah.
You've got Jalen Johnson, who's I think is going to be a really good cornerback in this league, but he's still a second-year player from a small school. And then you have garbage behind the rest of the corners. The rest of the Bears corners are absolute hot garbage. Kindle Vildor is not the answer. Do
you remember that play with Kindle Vildor where he was covering very, very well? Like he was right on the guy, and yet he didn't make a single play on the ball. He was right on him, and yet he was able to catch it so easily.
Yep. Duke Shelley, hot doo-doo. Like we don't have the defensive backs. So unless the Bears pass rush is getting there, then they're going to get picked apart all day long.
Almost 500 yards of offense for the 49ers, if I remember correctly.
I mean, that's a probably about right.
Because the last time I checked before the game was over, it was like 470. So, you figure it was almost
they're at 467.
467. Well, okay. So not quite 500, but still 467.
Yeah. You gave up 145 yards on the ground, 322 in the air. So it's not even like they dominated in one area. They dominated all over. And the thing is on the ground, they were marching down the field with passing game, but you did a decent job at the run defense until the fourth quarter. And then it was a disaster. You had the one drive where you had them in a 3rd and long. And you're all right, easy peasy. They throw a screen pass.
Oh, God.
It's like you had no idea it was coming.
That was the turning point. What was it, 82-yard run?
Something like that. It was long.
That was the turning point. It was that play. Because you could have stopped them. They would have been pinned back. They would have had to punt. And you probably could have had decent field position. And I know we don't always trust this offense, but the way it was moving yesterday, You could feel at least pretty confident that they could have at least gotten another field goal. But then that happened.
Yeah, it just absolutely backbreaking, just backbreaking.
And then they didn't stop the 49ers for the rest of the game. They made it look so easy the rest of the game, the way they marched down. And every time the Bears tried to answer back, they would answer right back there and then. And then they finally just finished them off. And, what really, really irritated me was, like I mentioned before, I'm just going to mention again because of how much it irritated me. Jimmy Garoppolo could have dropped back. He literally could have taken out a magazine and read the whole thing, and no one would have touched him. No one would have touched him.
Nope. 0 sacks on the day. 0. None whatsoever. On a team on a 4-game losing streak, and you couldn't get to their quarterback one time.
No. Also, I want to say this too. Soldier Field is a goddamn joke. You saw that turf, right?
It was bad. It's as bad as it's been in years.
God, get us to Arlington Heights, for the love of God. I mean, that was what you would expect on December 16th, not freaking Halloween.
Yeah, it was rough. It was rough. And I mean, I like DeAndre Houston Carson, but when you have 2 backup safeties in, it's not a good recipe in there.
No. And you know what? You also got to give this to the 49ers. Whatever they were doing in the halftime locker room session, you want to talk about adjusting. They adjusted on almost every level of the game. And the Bears didn't. We don't even have Matt Nagy to blame this week.
No. So, I mean, Matt Nagy got COVID and was not there. And I got a lot of ha-has on Twitter because I posted a meme from the movie Friday. It said, "How you gonna get fired on your day off?" I should have put Nagy's face on Smokey's head.
Yeah,
but I didn't. But it was a good one because I mean, honestly, why aren't you gonna? Why is he there? It doesn't make any sense to me. Is Matt Nagy, what does he bring to this team? The offense is problematic. He has no interest in the defense. And if you're the head coach, I get it. You want an offensive head coach because, especially with a young quarterback, because you need to develop that system. And if you bring in a defensive-minded head coach, then the offensive scheme is coming from their offensive coordinator. And if they do well, offensive coordinator gets hired on to be a head coach. And then you start from scratch. And we saw that with Lovey. And, so the way to do it is you have offensive-minded head coach. But the problem is unless your offense is just fantastic, you can't just focus on the offense and then just leave the defense, alone. You look at a Bill Belichick. Do you think he doesn't have his hands in everything? That man has his hands in the special teams, the offense, the defense. It's all in his hands. I'm sure John Harbaugh is the same way. I'm sure, most of the top head coaches probably are. You may not be your primary focus, but guess what? Is if you have a good offense and you have a good offensive mind, you know how you help the defense? is you go to them and you're like, this is how I would attack your defense. This is what I would do in these situations. It's like a game of chess. You're trying to help them be better, find the holes in their game. It's that's not what we have. And our offensive system isn't even anywhere near good enough to make up for the fact that we're not playing good defense. This is a disaster. Our pass protection is piss poor.
That's putting it lightly.
Justin Fields was sacked 4 more times. And listen, I know that he holds onto the ball way too long, but that kid is going to get killed. And
yeah,
but we saw some really good things from him. Where that what I don't understand is we know what he can do. The problem is the Bears' offensive scheme is so. What's the opposite of dynamic? It's the opposite of dynamic, where we will take advantage of the best things that our players can do. They're like, nope, this is our system, and you're going to fit the players into their system. Justin Fields is an athletic quarterback. Roll him out, have designed runs, get his confidence up. Why are all his passes? Why are they throwing him 15, 20 yards down the field? That doesn't get you in a rhythm. Have short dump off passes. You're going to break this kid. Let him build his confidence. Let him run. You saw what happens when he improvises. He had over 100 yards rushing. He had that amazing touchdown run where, it was almost a disaster, and he absolutely turned it into a spectacular touchdown run.
You wouldn't have seen that from any other Bears quarterback. And honestly, you don't see that from any other quarterbacks, period. I mean, look at the 2 Bears touchdowns. You saw him roll out, throw for his throwing touchdown, and it was it Jesper Horsted? Who called
No,
it?
It was James.
Jesse James, thank you. I kind of forgot about him, you hadn't seen much of him. But, the way he rolled out and he got it to Jesse James, it was a perfect throw. I mean, it was perfect. It was, obviously you have to go down and get it, but it wasn't going to get picked off. It wasn't going to be a turnover. And he did it while he was rolling out. And then to what you just mentioned before, you saw him have that crazy touchdown run, which, let's be real, that's the play of the year for the Bears right there. That play right there. Nothing better than that play. That was unbelievable. He looked dead in the water, and then he was able to pull off that wizardry. That was some El Mago shit right there. And
honestly, that as awesome as that play was, my favorite part of that play was Fred Warner thinking that he was going to get Justin Fields on that play. And Jason Peters cleaned his clock.
Yes.
Jason Peters decleated him in my favorite block of the year. He just said, not today, partner, not today, and leveled him in a absolutely clean hit, just took him out, and he sprung him for a touchdown.
That was probably the best play we've seen from an offensive lineman this year, which isn't saying much, but still. I mean, everything on that play was awesome. And that right there was showcasing what you're able to do. So, like you said, let him do more of that stuff. Open it up for him. Allow him to do that. He wants to do it. He'll excel by doing that. It's frustrating when it feels like he's being handcuffed, which we feel like that's been happening an awful lot this year with him. He should be allowed to do whatever, especially now. You're not going anywhere. Your season is over. You have no chance of doing anything impactful after New Year's Eve. It's over. Just let him develop, do what he can, see what he can do, allow him to run a lot of that offense, that's the best way you're going to develop this kid is by doing that. I also think that with yesterday's game that Justin Fields had, you saw early on, again, really nice rhythm passing. You saw him throw into some tight windows. You saw him, hit his targets. Obviously, you're going to have some overthrows in the game, but, that's typical of a rookie quarterback. And I can't really put that interception on him much. That really was more on Darnell Mooney. But, I mean, there was so much to like about Fields' performance yesterday. And, that's what I'm trying to take most out of this. But it's hard when you had a game that felt very winnable and halfway through felt pretty good about winning, despite a lot of what was happening on the field. You thought, if we can keep rolling and we can, put a few more good drives together, we can put this thing away. The thing that irritated me, though, outside of the defense was, we've talked about this many times with the offense before in years past, but settling for field goals. And I want to bring this up. Cole Kmet I want to give him a chance. I do, but he's supposed to be a playmaker, and he's not doing that. You can say his arm was being held on that drop in the end zone, but how many times have we seen other teams make plays out of things that shouldn't be made? Whether it's a catch, whether it's a block. I feel like our targets, whether they're the tight ends or the receivers, they don't do that. We don't have those playmakers. We have playmakers in the backfield, but when it comes to targets for Justin Fields, look, I'm not saying that Cole Kmet catch was easy, but other teams are able to make those types of plays and we're not. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I get it. And here's, and I'm going to make your point a bigger extrapolation is last year, after the season was over, when we got the George McCaskey, Ted Phillips press conference where they were talked about how much they loved Nagy and Pace's collaboration and they trust them. This right here is the exact reason why every Bears fan and all the Bears writers and the national media and everybody else was saying, hey, this is a bad idea. Because how in the world are you supposed to evaluate players and build, these young players up with a broken system?
Mm-hmm.
So, should Cole Kmet make some of these catches? Absolutely. But are you putting him in the position to be the best tight end he can be?
Probably
Absolutely not.
No.
And that's a double whammy. Does Cole Kmet make the most of his opportunities if you put him in a better position? I don't know. But that's the thing I wanted to figure out is if we would have hired a real coach, a better coach last year, then maybe we find that out this year. Matt Nagy's not the answer. He doesn't put any of his receivers in positions to win. All catches are contested catches, or they're not catching it in stride where they're getting big yards after the catch. That's just not what we're seeing. We haven't seen it. We're the better part of 4 years into this. And it's so tough to sit there and say, yeah, this is not working. That's not working because of the player or because of the system. And it makes the evaluation process really tough. Even the offensive line, we're going to rag on the players and they're going to get the ultimate brunt of it all. But I mean, I've listened to enough Olin Kreutz talking that it's not always the offensive lineman. He's like, sometimes it's the scheme. Sometimes it's the quarterback. Sometimes it's, He's like, but he's like, the offensive lineman always gets the blame. And while I do think they need to upgrade the offensive line, it's again falls under how much of it is a bad offensive scheme versus how much is it bad individual play. And it's so tough because we don't know. And we got set back another year plus at this point because Ryan Pace put us in financial constraints that, we didn't have as many going into this year. So we're a year behind on the offensive scheme. We've burned a year of the cheap contract of Justin Fields.
Mm-hmm.
And then we had this week come out where, Matt Nagy's not there. Players start talking now. So Allen Robinson says, hey, I don't have a rapport with Justin Fields because I didn't work with him the whole the preseason. You know who that's on?
The coaching.
Goddamn Matt Nagy. Everybody said, oh yeah, play him. Nope. He's not. He's our backup all year long. I don't care what you guys say. And, one thing, Matt Nagy might be dumb, but at least if he would have stuck with his dumb convictions of playing Andy Dalton all season, you could at least have some respect. You're like, you know what? He stuck to his guns.
Sure.
But he didn't. He folded like, house of cards because he's dumb and has no convictions with a bad offensive scheme. And I don't know what he brings to this team because clearly you can't tell me that things are good in Hallis Hall. You can't. We get nothing from them because they're competitive advantage. Not going to tell you. Or you get word salad. Matt Nagy is nothing if not word salad. And then as soon as he's not there, because he can't be, you get Allen Robinson spilling some things. You get all these things coming out. You have Jason Peters give us an update on Larry Borum and Tevin Jenkins.
Yeah, I mean, what does that tell you right there? When an offensive lineman is giving you more information than your coaches.
Yeah, it is infuriating. And you're like, why couldn't Matt Nagy have told us that Larry Borum was going to be back that week? And he absolutely was. And then you have Jason Peters tell us that, what's his name that played right tackle last week? What's his name? Oh my God, why am I having an old man moment? He didn't practice at all during the week. They just put him out there. Why didn't you play him during the practice? Why? I don't understand. And I don't know how much practice Larry Borum got this week because he came off of the injured list. And then on Friday, Thursday? Mm-hmm. So how much practice did he get? Because he's been on the injured list. So you just threw him out there. And I don't think he did a bad job. I mean, he was going against Bosa most of the game and they had to chip it, a bunch, but I think he did an all right job. I just can't figure out what the hell Elijah Wilkinson. I can't figure out what it is this team is doing. They just, we'll just throw him in there. He's an offensive lineman. Just go right in. Put your players in the best situation they can be in. Elijah Wilkinson going from just riding the pine to, going into the starting spot at right tackle. How is that good for him without practice? How is that good? A Jason Peters can do that because he's been in this league for 400 years and he's arguably a Hall of Famer. He can do those things. He can go from a fishing trip to starting left tackle. That's what he can do. Elijah Wilkinson is not Jason Peters.
No.
It's just so infuriating. And I want to be mad at players for not doing what they're supposed to do. But it's just really hard watching this team, even when they were like, oh, in the first half, you're like, oh, they're moving the ball. They didn't punt at all. They scored on all of their drives. And, you didn't punt until the second half, but you came out of the first half and you didn't score very many points. I mean, you scored 13 points, and that's like average. That's like an average score. Like that's how many an average team puts up in a first half. So, we're like, oh man, we put up average numbers. That's the frustrating part is, we see that it's there. We've got running backs. We're able to run the ball. We've got a quarterback, and it's our scheme is not set up well. Why can't we run screens? Why can't we have passes that are short passes to start off, get our quarterback in a rhythm, why can't we move him more? Why can't we have him designed runs? How many weeks has Justin Fields been playing? 6?
If you mean full games, yeah.
So he's like 6 games, and he has less designed runs than the backup quarterback for the 49ers, who's played in 1 game.
That's unreal.
I
mean, that's unbelievable. How do they not see this? How do they not see this is not working?
Like,
how does everybody in the universe see but them?
Like, I don't want to make him a gadget running quarterback like what's his face from the Saints last year.
Like Taysom Hill.
Yeah, like I don't want Taysom Hill. I don't want that. I want him to be a quarterback first. But you know what? Trust me, is a kid that's as competitive as him, making a big play boosts that confidence, which makes everything better. So you know what? And it also keeps the defense honest. So design some runs, design some rollouts, design some easy dump off passes, get him in a rhythm, get him getting some first downs, keeping those chains moving. And for Matt Nagy.
Yeah. I mean, look, to put it in perspective, some guy named Mike White for the Jets, they put on an offensive show yesterday. The Jets, even the Jets are able to make things work offensively.
You know what's hilarious is, everyone's like, oh man, the Bengals are the best team in the AFC. The Bengals, literally last week, Bengals are the best. They're the favorite to go to the Super Bowl from the AFC. Now they've lost to the Bears and the Jets.
Yeah. I like what the Bengals are doing, but I was not ready to hop on that, they're Super Bowl contenders this year bandwagon just yet.
Yeah. So Mike White, third-year quarterback out of Western Kentucky, throws for 405 yards and 3 touchdowns in a win over the Bengals.
I never heard of him.
Me either.
Never heard of him. Every team on the planet Earth can do this stuff but us.
I know. Every team can have a backup quarterback that comes in and goes, oh, hey, look, they may not be fantastic, but that's the reason we signed Mike Glennon is the Buccaneers turned Mike Glennon into a halfway decent quarterback. The Jaguars in Gardner Minshew. They're like, oh man, look what we did to Gardner Minshew. Yesterday, Cooper Rush threw for 325 yards and 2 touchdowns. Cooper Rush.
I think the only time we've seen this kind of thing is when Josh McCown was here back in the Trestman days. It's about the only time I think we've actually seen a scenario where a Bears backup quarterback comes in and does really well like that. Also, I also found it funny how in yesterday's game, the Bears ran their first successful screen since like Kyle Lorton was a quarterback. And of course, flags, 2 flags. An eligible man downfield, and I think a holding or a block in the back, one of the two.
Yeah, it was a block in the back. And that was, I mean, it was a block in the back. But if Greg Olson kind of pointed to it, is defenders now, when they know that they're going to be blocked, they turn their back and they're like, well, if I'm going to get blocked, try to get the flag. And that's kind of what happened. Cody Whitehair has to be smarter about that. But the problem is when you are not on the side of where the screenplay is going, it's real hard to know where you're supposed to be and when you can go downfield unless you practice this regularly. There's a reason that certain teams are good at it because they practice it. It's a staple of the Chiefs offense. It's a staple of the Patriots offense. So many teams do it and they learn to be good at it, and the Bears just don't do it, and they're clearly not good at it. So it's tough because what happens is it's like a self-fulfilling prophecy. So the Bears are like, well, we tried it and it didn't work, so we're just going to quit doing it. You're like, well, it didn't work because there was penalties because you don't practice it. Like it's not in their repertoire.
Yeah. That's a good point. I mean, think about it. It's like going up to a peewee football team that's never done like a fake punt before, and you ask them to do a fake punt. They're not going to know what to do, what positions they're going to be in.
Yeah, it's onside kick is the reason teams, how often do they do an onside kick? You see them so rarely. How many have we seen this year have we seen one in a Bears game this year?
In a Bears game? I don't think so.
So they don't happen very often anymore. But still, teams devote time every practice on working on them because it's really hard to do an onside kick. And, you have to practice all the time still for it to not be that successful. You have to practice everything you do. It's not just like, oh, you just show up and do things. No, you have to practice. And screen passes are one of those things. You have to. If you're going to be successful offense, you better have a screen pass somewhere in your arsenal that you can pull out at a moment's notice.
Right.
It's just so frustrating. It's just so frustrating to watch this futile offense. And I don't understand what's the point of keeping Matt Nagy at this point. I really don't.
Because they don't fire people mid-season because that goes against their values or whatever.
What values? I don't understand. It's
losing mentality. That's what it is.
We keep hearing, Virginia and George are pissed.
Yeah, and then they never do anything about it.
It's
their way. It's their way of saying we care, but we don't care.
Yeah, I mean, it's how in the world can you truly be pissed at something and not do a goddamn thing to fix it?
And you know what, Sean? We knew going into the season that the development of Justin Fields was going to be the main thing to watch because, we didn't think that this team was really going anywhere. I mean, we knew the team had enough talent to be competitive at best, but not legit contenders. We all knew that. And you know what? If you were 3-5 and you were playing nice offense, you were seeing the team move the ball consistently, Justin Fields growing game by game, and you were seeing things that were legit good, but you just weren't pulling out all the victories because you weren't just quite as good enough, that would be one thing. It would be frustrating as hell. Don't get me wrong. You lose a lot of close games. That's really frustrating. And we'd probably be angry about that too. But at least there would be more positives you could take away. The good thing about this game Sunday is that there were positives you could take away, because that was probably the most impressive we've seen Justin Fields all year. Yeah, you could point to some of the deep throws in the Lions game, but I really just liked the poise that he had in this game against the 49ers. And, you saw the great run. You saw the touchdown throw rolling out. That was all great. But there were so many weeks where you didn't get a chance to see anything positive, whether it was the Browns game, whether it was the Packer game, even though they started off pretty good, and especially not the Tampa Bay game. You had so many games where you just were so overmatched. It was not even close to having anything positive to talk about. That's not good to have when you're trying to develop your most important asset that you have ever had. That's what really hurts about all this. And it's in a scheme where we saw multiple quarterbacks fail in, whether it was Mitch Trubisky, whether it was Nick Foles. And, it's not like this is a rookie head coach that's trying to pick things up on the job. And, you have a head coach that's learning, a quarterback that's learning as well. It's year 4, Matt Nagy. You've gone through multiple quarterbacks already. You haven't had a good offense once. And now you have the most talented quarterback you've ever had, and he's not getting the full opportunity to develop the way you'd want him to. And you're also, to your point, not seeing other young guys or talented guys get to their full potential because the scheme is not working. That's what just hurts more than anything.
The saddest part for me is this even a development year for Justin Fields? Sure, he's learning the speed of the game and how much better the competition is within the NFL level than the NCAA. But is he really developing in this stagnant offense with a bad head coach? It feels like it's losing a year, setting you back a year. Like you're losing this year of your having a young quarterback. That's so frustrating. Even if you went chicken shit and were like, well, we're not going to fire Ryan Pace. If you parted ways with Matt Nagy, you still have Justin Fields and you have a new system with a new voice that's going, hey, we're in this together. Me and you, we're linked. It's your best systems have an elite quarterback tied to a head coach. And the Bears have a lame duck head coach with a potential star quarterback. That's not how that's supposed to work. That's not how that's supposed to work.
No, it's not.
I mean, you have not really working so much this year, but Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes. You've got Tom Brady and what's his face in Tampa Bay, Bruce Arians. You've got you've got.
You have Bill Belichick seeing Mac Jones grow by the week.
Yes, Mac Jones is learning and growing. This week
and
against the Chargers,
he's not even the most talented guy to be taken, but when you put him in the right system, see what happens.
Yeah, absolutely. And he has his ups and downs. Like this week, they got the win, but he didn't play particularly well.
But the nice thing is that in that situation, you can further identify what things you have to fix. It's hard to identify what to fix when you have a rookie quarterback that's, getting his ass beat or isn't really getting anybody open. Nobody's open. When your scheme doesn't allow your targets to create separation and you're constantly being blindsided by the opposition, it's hard to identify what things to work on.
I just don't know what to do here. It's, you look at the schedule and the next game, we have a Monday night game coming up A week from, we're recording this on Monday. A week from today, you have the Bears playing the Steelers in Pittsburgh. And is that Pittsburgh team beatable? Absolutely. But can you beat them? I don't. I think we're going to see a very similar game to what we saw with the Browns. Very similar. Where I think we're going to hold their offense in check most of the game, hold them to field goals, but our offense is just going to get manhandled.
Yeah.
Absolutely manhandled. And then the fourth quarter, they're going to create a gap and we're going to lose, I don't know, 24-3, something along those lines, or 20-3, something along those lines.
Sean, a few weeks ago, I was actually looking at that game pretty optimistically, but after seeing what happened this week, it's hard for me to be optimistic now about that game. If you want my personal opinion, I think they'll be lucky to win 2 more games. That's how I feel right now. Obviously, our attitudes change week by week, but right now, knowing the opponents on our schedule, and we're recording this the night before the deadline. So when you're listening to this, the listener, who knows what the Bears roster is going to look like after the deadline? Allen Robinson could be gone. Other guys could be shipped off. We don't know. If they're selling, then I think they're going to be very lucky to get 2 more wins. Maybe beat the Giants, maybe beat the Lions. Any other game, they're not going to be favored.
No. I think, honestly, let's see. Home. Okay, so they're home against the Giants. They might be a favorite against the Giants, depending. We'll see.
Yeah.
It might be it won't be a full 3 points. Lions, they'll probably be a favorite, but they're not going to be a favorite against Steelers or Ravens or Cardinals or Packers or Vikings either time, or Seahawks.
Nope.
Even if Russell Wilson is out, which I don't think he will be, but even if he is.
Isn't that game in Seattle?
It's in Seattle. There's no way the Bears are favorite.
Yeah, no, not right.
And this is the NFL. Anything can happen any week, as we see with the Bengals go and beat the Ravens and then lose to the Jets.
Yeah.
Anything can happen. But I mean, maybe the Steelers game turns out well. Maybe Big Ben throws a bunch of picks. I don't know who to who, because the Bears defense their secondary is terrible. But
yeah, I feel like the 2 games you feel good about, the Giants and the Lions, and then you got to make room for one upset, because like you said, that's the NFL. That's going to happen. I mean, I'm not saying they're going to beat the Packers, but remember in 2015 how lopsided the odds were against the Bears on Thanksgiving, and they ended up winning. That's going to happen from time to time. So I bet you one of these games, there'll be a game where obviously the Bears aren't going to be favored in really any of the others, but I would imagine that they will pull off at least one upset win. But 2 to 3 wins right now at this point is all I feel really confident in. That's kind of where we're at. Finishing with 5 wins wouldn't surprise me.
The Steelers are a touchdown favorites.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I don't think they have a farts chance in a snow or in a windstorm against the Ravens. Maybe they beat the Lions. No chance they have against the Cardinals.
Yeah, I mean, the only game the Lions are a train wreck. I mean, they're a train wreck.
You know what? Honestly, they're not good. I still think they have the right coaching staff in place.
Oh, I do too. They just don't have the talent.
They don't have the talent. But they've been competitive in most games. They got their ass kicked yesterday. They really did. But
other than that,
they've played competitively for most of the games.
They did, yes.
I mean, if they were to beat the Bears, would I be shocked? No.
Not exactly.
No. I mean, it's the Bears are not a shoe-in to beat the Lions. It's not like the Packers going in there. Like if the Packers lost to the Lions, you'd be absolutely shocked. You'd be like, what happened? Did Aaron Rodgers die? But if the Bears lose to the Lions, I think honestly, I think that would just be the nail in the coffin of Matt Nagy. But it's I would say it's a fairly long shot. I think the Bears win that game, but I don't think it's a sure thing.
No, I mean, nothing's really a sure thing, but no, I mean, there would definitely be a scenario I wouldn't be surprised at a loss to the Lions. I mean, hey, remember Thanksgiving in 2019 when the Bears were playing David Blau and they needed a last minute touchdown to win that game? I mean, that goes to show right there. It's that they're really not a shoe-in for any game.
The Vikings, maybe they win one of the Vikings games, but they don't beat the Cardinals. They don't beat the Packers. Maybe one of the Vikings games because that Vikings team, they got their ass kicked by Cooper Rush. And they couldn't, I mean, that team just, they implode at any opportunity they have.
I believe the Vikings in Minnesota is the final game of the season, yes?
Yes.
And you know what? By that point, who knows what the scenarios are going to look like? So, it could be one of those things. Either the Vikings are a wild card or they're playing for a wild card or neither team is in it. And it's just kind of a battle of let's get the hell out of here. You kind of never know what's going to happen in that game. So right now, obviously, I think the Vikings are a better team than the Bears, but as I say, there's always opportunity and always room where the Bears could beat the Vikings.
Yes. Because I mean, honestly, if you stop their running offense, they might put up a lot of passing yards. They just don't put up a ton of passing points. And without a run game, if the Bears are able to stop the run game, I think they can do it. So honestly, I'm looking at the schedule. Maybe they win one of the two against the Vikings. I don't think they beat the Seahawks. Maybe they beat the Giants. I think the Giants are kind of a disaster too. So we're looking at, so they got 3 wins now, 4, 5, 6, wind up being a 6-11 team.
Yeah.
That seems about right.
Yeah. I could, like I said, 5 or 6 wins at this point. A few weeks ago, I could have said 7 or 8, but now I'm feeling 5 or 6. I said, I think there's going to be one surprise in there. There's going to be one surprise win. It happens every year.
And, you brought up a really good point is, whoa, did you see Von Miller got traded from the Broncos to the Rams?
Yeah, that happened earlier today.
I didn't see that at all.
And Adrian Peterson's going to the Titans.
Really?
Boy, you need to catch up, buddy.
I was busy working.
I mean, I got updates on my phone during the day. I don't know if you have that set on your phone or not.
I don't have any.
Okay, well, that's how I found out. So my phone buzzed and I saw it. So that's how I found out.
They're gonna have Von Miller on that Rams defense.
Yeah. Honestly, that's a team I kind of want to see come out of the NFC. I wouldn't mind seeing them or the Cardinals come out of the NFC. Because it's clearly not going to be the Bears.
But you made a good point is that we don't know what the Bears are going to look like come the game against the Steelers. I mean, why wouldn't you trade Allen Robinson at this point? What has he done for you? he has like, we're halfway through the season and he has like, what, 20 catches for 250 yards?
Honestly, he probably wants out. We have no use for him at this point. It would make everybody happy. And it's such a shame because when Ryan Pace got him in those series of moves where we thought Ryan Pace was a god, got him, got a bunch of other players, and then got Khalil Mack before the season. It felt so good to be a Bears fan. And we thought, wow, this is potentially one of the best wide receivers we ever had, like maybe outside Brandon Marshall. And he never played in a good system. And now he just kind of seems like he's going through the motions. It's just a shame. It really, really is. But you know what? If you could get something for him, Ryan Pace has done nothing the past 2 years but give away draft picks. Now let's bring some back this time.
I'm curious. So the Saints just beat the Buccaneers with Jameis Winston going out with Trevor Siemian at quarterback. They're going to go the rest of the season with Trevor Siemian as their quarterback. And they're going to look so much better than the Bears. And they are down. They had Drew Brees retire, Jameis Winston go down, and their number one wide receiver is still out. They're on a third string quarterback, and they're going to be better than the Bears.
Yeah.
That's what coaching does.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Sean Payton, like him or not, he knows what the hell he's doing. It's the reason he's been there since 2005?
He's been there a long time. He's a very good coach.
Yeah. Guy knows what he's doing. I mean, there's Mike White. There's that. It's frustrating as hell how practically every team out there can make things work offensively but us. I mean, it is seen as a victory, a big deal for us to break 20. 20 is a good game for the Bears. And yet other teams are putting 20 up consistently.
So frustrating.
And you know what? The last thing I'm going to say about the Bears is this. The defense was dog turd tacos on Sunday. It was awful.
Truth.
But you know what? That defense has bailed out the Bears so many times. So many times. It's like, you know what? For once in our life, just once, I'd like to see us win a shootout. Win with your offense. It's basically been, let the defense do the work and the offense needs to do just enough. That's been Bears football since George Halas founded the team. Or I should say, got the Decatur Staleys and brought him here. Can't do that anymore. You can't do that.
So I'm going to throw this out there. What if you trade Andy Dalton to the Saints?
You know, I was thinking that too. But is there an issue with dead money?
I mean, it's going to be the same amount of dead money as you would have anyway, because you know, 1 year deal.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, that's true. It is a 1 year deal. That'd be more like with trading Khalil Mack. That would be an issue with dead money.
That would be a big issue.
That would be a major issue.
So really, your options, I mean, is Allen Robinson or Andy Dalton or both.
Yeah, and you know what?
Or
you know
Nick
what? I was
Foles.
when I brought up dead money, I was thinking more like the Nick Foles contract. But yeah, no, the 1 year deal with Dalton. I would do everything I could to shop Dalton and Allen Robinson.
Oh, absolutely. Neither one are helping you. I mean, you have Nick Foles. If something were to happen to Justin Fields, you go Nick Foles. Like you don't need Andy Dalton at this point.
Yeah, I mean, and let's face it, something happens to Justin Fields and Nick Foles needs to start. At this point, who cares? Not going anywhere.
Yeah, if that happens, it's not like you were going anywhere anyway.
Right. Exactly.
And
I mean, Andy Dalton really doesn't have a purpose here. And it would, for his sake, I'd like to see him go to a place where he has a purpose.
And he would have a purpose in New England. I'm sorry, New England. No, New Orleans.
New Orleans, yeah.
He would have a purpose. They're a team that's trying to go into the playoffs.
They have good coaching.
Mm-hmm.
They have guys that can make plays. You could plug in an Andy Dalton. I don't think you're winning the Super Bowl with Andy Dalton, but you could plug him in and be successful.
Yeah,
I think.
I think that would be a very good landing spot for him. It would showcase him. It gives the Saints an actual veteran, for the rest of the season. And, Andy Dalton can either re-sign there or get his market value up because he's playing in a winning program. Even if he was playing in Chicago, it's a disaster waiting to happen.
Yeah, exactly. Now here's an idea that's not going to happen. And I know I got a lot of friends who are Colts fans, and I know some of them listen to the show. And I don't, like I said, I couldn't see the Colts doing this. It's just a thought. Carson Wentz is, did you see that pick six he threw yesterday?
It was bad.
It was bad. And it's the kind of mistakes he made in yesterday's game for a veteran quarterback. They felt kind of bench worthy. I mean, would you be so desperate? And again, they're probably not, but would you want to say, hey, Chicago, Andy Dalton, what do you want for him?
I don't think they're in that position because they owe him a lot of money.
Yeah, I don't think so either. It's just something to throw out there. I mean, the Colts feel kind of like a lost cause at their point. Though they have a lighter schedule, they can, quote, get back into things, but I clearly don't think they're good enough to actually contend this year. But I remember we tried pawning off Nick Foles to them, and that obviously didn't work. But, oh, well, you didn't really expect it to. But, New Orleans would make a hell lot more sense. They need a veteran quarterback, and the Bears want to shed and maybe get some draft capital back. You're not going to get anything major for Andy Dalton, but honestly, in the game of football, any pick is worth something.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, you are short picks. I would imagine in their predicament, a third round pick is probably pretty fair. And if you get that, you got to be pretty happy if you're the Bears.
If they got a third round pick for Dalton, I'd be ecstatic.
And I keep hearing rumors that Allen Robinson to the Packers. Like, there's absolutely no way in hell they're going to trade Allen Robinson to the Green Bay Packers.
And I mean, if you were to trade him to the Packers, there would probably be some extra tax on that, right?
I mean, I guess if they offered you 3 first-round picks, you'd be like, okay.
Well, yeah, but that,
but otherwise, like, why in the world? Unless they way overpaid, absolutely way overpaid, there's no way that you're trading them to the Packers.
Right.
Because
exactly.
It's going to come back.
The Vikings. You're not trading them in division.
Because if you trade Allen Robinson to the Green Bay Packers, in like 3 weeks or whatever, he's going to come to Chicago and embarrass the shit out of you.
Well, they go to Green Bay.
I'm sorry. They already. So yeah, you would be playing them and he would embarrass the shit out of you.
And in the post game, he would absolutely be taking subtle shots at the Bears.
I don't even know if they'd be subtle.
Yeah, maybe not. Yeah, no, I mean, remember when Julius Peppers went to the Packers?
Yeah.
I mean, I know that was a
Yeah.
different story, but we remember that. We remember that very well. Yeah, I don't see them trading in with the Packers. Um, I can't help but wonder, looking at some of the other teams, like there are other teams with quarterback issues, but a lot of those are non-contenders. Like, I mean, like the Jets are not going to go shop for Andy Dalton. Why would they give up draft capital? They're not going anywhere. I mean, why would they do that? That's not going to happen. The Broncos have kind of fallen off a bit, but I don't think them trading for Andy Dalton is going to save their season. I mean, they just traded away one of their biggest assets, if not their biggest asset. So they're not going to be buying. Maybe the Dolphins go off the deep end and they're like, oh, we need another veteran quarterback. And while logic wouldn't tell you that they would trade for Andy Dalton, maybe they're just kooky enough. I don't know.
The Dolphins are either sticking with Tua
Or they're going to go with Deshaun. Yeah.
Yes, because they're from what I'm hearing is the front office is like, no, we want to stick with Tua. And the owner's like, no, Deshaun.
That's so stupid. Tua's shown some promise. Why would you go away from that? Look, the Miami Dolphins are top 5 dumpster fire this year in the NFL and probably the biggest letdown in the National Football League this year. But I mean, why would you go away from Tua?
If you were like, okay, like Deshaun is a much better quarterback than Tua right now. Maybe Tua catches up there, but we don't know. But if there was no legal issues,
yeah,
that would be one thing, but we don't know what's going to happen with him.
Exactly.
Why in the world would you give up and they apparently don't want Tua. So you would have to trade Tua to somebody else. And
the whole thing doesn't make sense. And has Deshaun done any football activity? I mean,
I don't think he's allowed to.
Right. So you're getting a guy, you'd be getting a guy that hasn't played in how long?
A long time.
Exactly. So yes, talent-wise, Deshaun Watson is better. But with the legal baggage and not having played for a while, and knowing you're going to have to give up some significant, maybe not as significant because the value's kind of up and down with the whole legal issue, but still, you would have to give up something to get him. And I think I'm not the biggest Tua guy, but I still think he could be a pretty good quarterback. I just, to give up that early, in my opinion, on him, it doesn't make sense.
Yeah, unless you can be guaranteed you could trade Tua and get something good for him to offset a lot of the costs of Deshaun Watson, just doesn't make any sense. Because Deshaun Watson is owed a lot of money and they want a lot of draft capital. And that is a lot to sink into a guy that could be in jail in a year.
Yeah, I mean, the discourse of that is going to be something to see, because this came up. It's not like this came up recently. This has been a thing that's been in the workings for a while. I mean, these lawsuits came out months ago. It was a while. So this is nothing new, and they still have a lot to sort out here from what it sounds like. So it just, what the Dolphins owner is thinking, what he's on, I don't know.
I mean, he's just an old man that thinks it's going to magically turn this team around.
It sounds like pure desperation. That's the only explanation I could think of.
Oh, it is desperation. I mean, you look, and Texans without Deshaun have been pretty competitive in a lot of these games. And, the Dolphins are not so competitive. It's not like it's not an apples to apples comparison. Like, oh yeah, we'll just add Deshaun Watson and suddenly we're a playoff contender. You've got a long way to go.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, look at some of those games that the Miami Dolphins have lost. I mean, they lost to the Jags that was on like an 0-20 streak. they lost to them. And then you had a game against the Falcons where they had the lead late, and then Falcons came back, got the last second field goal. Ooh, I thought the Dolphins were going to be good this year. I really did.
I thought they would be at least pretty decent.
Yeah. So, I mean, back to the whole Andy Dalton thing. Like you said, New Orleans would make a lot of sense more than most other teams. It's one of those situations where you say, okay, Andy Dalton, Allen Robinson, they're on the last year of their deals. It's either a 1-year deal or the last year of their franchise tag. And a contender can always use a veteran wide receiver, especially one with talent attributes like Allen Robinson. There are plenty of contenders out there that would love to have a guy like him to add to their offense.
Yeah, and honestly we've as Bears fans shit on Andy Dalton a lot, but that's because we have Justin Fields, and we're like, well, why? And it wasn't unfair shitting on to Andy Dalton. I don't think he's a world beater, but of the quarterbacks that are available right now, that aren't rapists, he's got to be the top one, right?
Well, yeah. I mean, here's the thing. We talk about Andy Dalton. We talk a lot about Andy Dalton. Most of the frustration towards Andy Dalton was that it looked like that was their solution at the time for a guy who has had a very good career. Andy Dalton has had a very good career. He's a multi-time Pro Bowler. He's thrown for over 4,000 plus yards, and he's had 30 plus touchdown seasons. He's a very good quarterback. But you look at where the team is now and where Andy Dalton is now, you're not getting 2013, 2014, 2015 Andy Dalton. You knew that. So most of that frustration was purely coming off that fact. But Andy Dalton, just as his own entity at this point, you could plug him into a system and he can help you manage. He's not going to win you games, but he's going to manage games. I mean, he'll help you win games by managing. He's not going to win the game for you, is what I'm trying to say. Not like he did, 5+ years ago. But I mean, would you rather have, in a veteran system, with the right weapons around you, with the right coaching, would you rather have some random third string, or would you rather have Andy Dalton, who's had plenty of experience and a track record of success? Answer is pretty obvious, right?
Absolutely. So it's what's the compensation package, and Brian Pace is not the smoothest of trade partners. So
we're gonna give you more collaboration, and we're gonna give you plenty of draft picks to go along with that collaboration, so you can collaborate who to draft.
We've announced that we are sending Andy Dalton to the New Orleans Saints, along with we're getting back a second round pick, but we also have to send our 2023 first round pick with him to get that. We think that is a very fair deal.
There was a lot of collaboration involved.
We did a lot of collaboration.
Oh, brother.
So yeah, that dumpster fire. Do you want to talk Blackhawks or do you want to talk Bulls?
Well, I kind of want to save the best for last because the Bulls are about to pull off something really awesome. But,
I'm going to go out on a limb and say that they are going to win tonight.
Dude, they were down by like 20, I think, at one point.
Let's see. They have the ball. They're up by 12 with a minute left.
Like, dude, they were end of the third quarter. Boston was up 103-89. I mean, that's not 20 points, but that's a pretty sizable lead. And then they were up, 96-85. So they were up by double digits for quite some time.
Yeah. So do you want to wrap up with Bulls?
Yeah, we'll wrap up with Bulls.
All right. So the Blackhawks, man. This if we think the Bears are a dumpster fire, the Blackhawks are a toxic dumpster fire.
Yeah. That organization just brought upon one of, if not the darkest week in Chicago sports history.
And that the day that everything went down, it it started off differently because I'm hearing rumors that ownership wants Colleton gone, and Stan is like, no.
Mm-hmm.
So then I'm like, oh man, you're going, I either have to override Stan Bowman to fire the head coach or get shown up publicly. And then just a few hours later, the whole thing, the house is cleaned. And it makes you think, was that report wrong? Or was that Stan being defiant all the way down to the very bitter last minute? Because he knew he was gone. According to the Sun-Times, he put his house on the market. He knew he was going to be gone. He knew he was not going to last through this.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the thing is Stan never took ownership for any part he had in Kyle Beach being assaulted. He blamed
immediately pointed John McDonough.
Yes, he threw John McDonough. And you know what? John McDonough, they all have a fault in this. They all did.
Joel Quenneville, Al McIsaac, John McDonough, Stan Bowman, they met in a room after the Sharks playoff series. After the game ended, they met in the room. They collectively agreed to sweep this under the rug and not do anything about it, in fear that it would cause a distraction by winning the Stanley Cup, that somebody's well-being was not as important as their image and their upcoming glory, which really doesn't make any sense. I mean, first of all, someone's well-being should never be second. Never, ever, no matter what. No matter what. Kyle Beach, his well-being, and getting that creep Brad Aldridge out of your organization and being assured that he will never assault anybody again. And that wasn't as important to do the right thing.
They let him celebrate with the cup.
They didn't even bother putting him on leave. They didn't even bother doing that. They reported the incident weeks after the fact.
They knew what was going on. They let his name go on the cup. And now they're trying to backtrack and get it removed from the cup. They let it go on there in the first place.
I mean,
and I'm going to be honest with you. And there's going to be a lot of people that probably do not want to hear this. I read that 107-page report. I read it, the entire thing. And Jonathan Taves, Patrick Kane have a lot more explaining that they need to do. That C should be taken off of Jonathan Taves' chest. Is you can't tell me that at no point did he know about it. Or even when he said he found out, the training camp the next year, which I don't believe based on what Brent Sopel said, what Nick Boynton said. I don't believe that they didn't know anything. But the fact that Kyle Beach was taunted afterwards by players and Jonathan Taves didn't put a stop to that as the captain is despicable. And the fact that even if he said, I didn't know until the training camp, is why didn't he have questions? And why is he still defending Stan Bowman saying he's a good man.
That was mind-boggling. That was absolutely mind-boggling.
There's a lot of explaining to do. And honestly, I wonder if Duncan Keith saw this coming, and that was a part of the reason that he just wanted out.
Maybe.
Because
I don't know.
Has Duncan Keith's name even been brought up?
Not that I've seen. And you know what, Sean? They had to know something. Whether it was in detail or in passing, they had to know something. But, Kane and Tays had the opportunity. They had the opportunity to say, you know what? We fucked up. We can't undo that, and we'll forever feel bad about it. But we're going to do the right thing now. We're going to be there for Kyle Beach. We're going to do everything we can to help make things right for Kyle Beach. We're going to take responsibility. But instead, they just said very tone-deaf things in their press conferences. And like Jeremy Colleton, too, it seemed like everybody had this need to defend Stan Bowman or to talk good about Stan Bowman. And here's another question I honestly have. Blackhawks PR. Don't you think you should go up to them and be like, hey, guys, don't say this, or this? Like, wouldn't you think that when your franchise is in crisis mode, PR would be all over everybody who's publicly speaking? I mean, wouldn't you think?
You would think. Do you think everybody got the treatment of, the crash course and these, everybody knew these questions were coming.
Of course.
Just be like, this is what you say. This is how you sidestep it. And,
right.
And that's, and you either sidestep it or you be out forthright and honest. If they would have come out and just been like, listen, like, here's what honestly happened that I knew about. I feel terrible that I didn't do more. And whatever the case, be heartfelt with it.
Mm-hmm.
I think that goes a long way. But both were bad. Jonathan Taves just sounded worse.
Yeah. And that's for a guy who seems so well-spoken and has done so much other good things for people. It was so disappointing. And, I'll be honest with you. I wasn't really expecting much from Patrick Kane. And at least Patrick Kane said he was willing to talk to Kyle Beach. But I expected more from Jonathan Tays. And I was shocked at some of the things he said. I'm like, dude, like, seriously? Have you had too many hits in the noggin or what's going on here? Because it was that point then and there where my cynicism just kicked in. And I said, you know what? If you're going to expect things from professional athletes, don't. Why should I expect any better at this point from anybody? It's that kind of cynicism that was put into my head as a result of that. And the thing that Kane and Tays also have to realize is you're the only two left from that regime. All the coaches, all the higher ups, all the other players, they're all gone. You're the only two left. So who do you think they're going to go to within the organization to ask more about this? It's going to be you two. It's going to be you two. And Sean, I'm not going to make any excuses for them. I am going to acknowledge that being a 20-year-old in that situation where multiple people are probably telling you different things, that being in that situation is not easy. But you had the chance to say, I'm going to own up to it. I'm not going to make excuses for it. Nothing I could do is going to make what happened right. but I'm going to make sure that Kyle Beach is going to be well off going forward. I'm going to do everything I can to help. That is what should have happened. And Sean, going above the players, because the players are one thing. The people ultimately responsible, the head coach, the general manager, the assistant general manager, the president of the team, everything in that meeting changed the course.
And I know Rocky Wirtz was exonerated. They said he didn't know. I find it hard to believe that he didn't know anything.
My theory, and this is based on what Brent Sopel said the other day. Brent Sopel says he doesn't believe Rocky Wirtz knew. I think he had to know something was going on. I'm not here to say I know he's fully innocent. Would I be surprised if he overheard some things and he didn't know exact full detail? Maybe, maybe not. I would be really shocked, though, if he knew absolutely nothing. The only one I legitimately trust in this situation right now, he wasn't with the organization at the time. He's only been in the organization with power a certain amount of time, just a short time. It's his son, Danny. That is the one where I can believe that he didn't know about this fully.
Yes, I will believe that. But honestly, just judging by what McDonough and Bowman and McIsaac said, it seemed very much like they absolutely couldn't believe that a grown man would be sexually assaulted. And they all thought they just had Neanderthal views on everything. And it was just like, oh, hey, they were two gay guys trying to get in the sheets with each other. Like, that's what it seemed like. And
that's probably how a lot of those players saw it too. Honestly, that's my theory, which is unfortunate because, like you said, it's a Neanderthal way of thinking.
And, nobody bothered to take the time to talk to the guy and realize that he's in fucking like he's suffering.
It was heart-wrenching to see him come out, the way he talked, how he said, how he felt. It was heartbreaking. I couldn't imagine what that guy's gone through over the last decade. It broke my heart to see it. And Sean, have you heard of the book? I think it's either Career Misconduct or Game Misconduct. Have you heard of that book?
I have not.
It's a book that recently came out about hockey culture and how there's a lot of toxicity in it. And it sounds like a lot of this toxicity aligns with what happened with the Blackhawks. So the Blackhawks have the biggest stain of this. Obviously, it happened in their organization, and their higher ups went out of the way to cover it up. But this is also a stain on the league for a number of reasons. Donald Fair of the NHLPA, he's got some questions to answer too.
You know what?
And
I'm glad you brought that up.
Yes.
Because until I finished that report, I would have never thought anything of it. He helped sweep this all under the rug too. Donald Fair should be off, because if I'm a player, how do you trust that guy with, representing you when he just absolutely threw Kyle Beach onto the bus?
Yeah, exactly. And I think it's safe to say that if there's a problem with the culture in the entire sport, then this is a stain on the sport. And, things need to change. It sounded like it was a good old boys, as you said, I'll say it again, Neanderthal way of thinking. A very Neanderthal, because, you think old school rough, tough hockey. Oh, well, if that was Bob Probert being assaulted, Bradley Aldrich would be an unrecognizable bloodied lump. Well, it's like, okay, look at the situation. Brad Aldrich, who was a video coach, he's a video coach, but he's got the power. And he demonstrated that power by saying, if you don't do what I do, you're never going to play again. I'm going to ruin your career. And that goes to show that kind of power is stronger than physical power in so many ways.
Is when you're 20 years old and your dream is to play in the NHL, do you know how many really fucking good hockey players never make it to the NHL and they were at the cusp of where Kyle Beach was, where you are so close and you'd never make it? You know how many players like that? And they were the stars everywhere they went up until that point. And for somebody to tell you that they could be the one that takes your entire dream away. Like, sure. I mean, if you compare Kyle Beach physically, like if this was a stranger on stranger thing where Brad Aldrich was trying to, like grab him and rape him off the street, Kyle Beach would have beat the shit out of him.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Kyle Beach was like 50 pounds heavier and like 5 inches taller. And, Brad Aldridge was like a little wormy guy. Like he would have gotten pummeled. But it's the power of holding your dream hostage.
Yep.
Holding his dream hostage.
Yep.
And sure, it was probably 95% lie. But when you're 20 years old and you're already in an uncomfortable position of the scenario that, they both tell the story up to a certain point, is you're already like uncomfortable and you're like, I don't know how to react. I've never been in this situation. And then somebody both physically threatens you with a baseball bat and holds your dreams hostage. Like, fuck, that's a lot to put on somebody in a spot decision.
And the sad thing is that Brad Aldrich knew that he can weasel his way out of that. He wasn't afraid to get caught. How many people has he molested? Only with the Blackhawks. He molested 2 people, or tried with the intern, and then he went on to do it in other organizations. And that right there is the biggest sin of all, is that he was able to go on and assault other people.
Nobody would have held anybody on the Blackhawks liable, or the organization or any of the players, if this would have been treated like it should have, and they turned him over to the police and fired him, Brad Aldrich, and moved on. That this would have been the correct thing to do, and this would not have happened to anybody else, because no other team would have hired him knowing who he is. And he would have, and you cannot tell me that there aren't more victims out there that just aren't willing to say anything.
Oh, of course.
You can't tell me he's a predator. You cannot tell me that there aren't, this is a very, very macho sport. And there's a lot of people out there that are going to be like, I'm not saying anything. I'm not going to go through that. And when you have a predator like that, there's absolutely no way you can tell me that there's not more victims that just are being quiet.
You could go beyond that, Sean. You can also go beyond just Brad Aldrich. You think about people who have been assaulted, molested, abused behind the scenes, whether it's hockey or any other sport. What we know is probably even barely the tip of the iceberg. And this has to we cannot allow for cultures and sports to continue with this Neanderthal-like culture. We have to make sure, it's just as an entity that in sports, that this kind of thing should never be taken lightly, and that everything needs to be taken serious, and that we can't promote this type of Neanderthal thinking and culture and good old boys, boys will be boys when it comes to this kind of thing, because then you're just going to have more victims and it's going to keep going on and on and on. And Sean, I go back to that meeting that they had at the United Center. The whole situation could have been turned around right then and there. Donna could have said, guys, here's the situation. This is what we're going to do. Myself, we're going to go to PR. We're going to report this to, not PR, HR, sorry. We're going to go to HR. We're going to report this to HR. We're going to get assured that the local authorities and the appropriate people that handle this matter are going to be informed immediately. Then he turns to Joel Quenneville. Joel, sit down with your team. Tell them what's happening, what's going on. Get them up to speed. Let them know that they could come to any of us with concerns or questions. Let them know that they know what's going on. Then go out there and win us a Stanley Cup. And you know what? Information is probably going to get out. And if media asks, say, hey, we have a serious situation with one of our employees. The appropriate people have been notified. We have launched an internal investigation. This employee is on leave until the investigation is concluded. He's not with the team. He's not around the team. He's not traveling with the team. We're taking care of it. We're nipping this in the bud right now. Our main goal is to win the Stanley Cup, but we also want to ensure the safety of our players. And you should
Honestly,
not have even thought about the two conflicting.
Honestly, had you gone to the Chicago police and been like, hey, listen, we're reporting this incident, but you know where we are and things. We've got another series to win. Can we do this discreetly while you're doing your investigation? And put Aldrich on administrative leave? Give your statements. You can keep it hush hush from the public while still dealing with it. And they chose not to do that. And, you know, even if they made the wrong decision of, you know what, let's sit on this until after the Stanley Cup finals, then why you could at least, you know, even though you did something wrong, you can make it less wrong by saying, all right, now that the Stanley Cup's finals are over, now let's go balls to the wall to rectify the situation.
Yeah, they
didn't do that either.
No, they didn't do any of that.
Colossal fuck ups. And sometimes you're like, oh man, you know, you feel the NHL has done things progressive. Like, they've, you know, they crack down on slurs that people say on the ice, and
they've taken safety on the ice a bit more seriously.
And you're like, okay, they've done some positive things. And then you're just like, nope. And then this. And the fact that they even fucked it up when Gary Bettman talked to Joel Quenneville. Why was Joel Quenneville allowed to coach another game? He shouldn't have
been. He should have been on leave until the conversation had been had.
And I don't think the Panthers would have got rid of him.
No, I don't think so either. And Joel Quenneville really hurts because he was one of the most beloved coaches we'd ever had in the city, one of the most successful. And the fact that he was one of the direct people responsible for this really is a damn shame. He had a surefire path to the Hall of Fame. Surefire path. He was the second winningest coach in history.
And this tarnishes everything. It's the first one. It's not like this is the third one and this happened at the end. This was the first one.
Yeah.
It tarnishes everything. And you can't take away, you know, the memories you have of it, or, you know, the feelings you had, or the time you spent at the parade. Like, none of that, but that memory, when you think back on it, you're just like, you know, like, what kind of bullshit was going on behind the scenes? And, you know, that they gave so little concern about one of their own that it was winning over everything.
And everything on the outside, the public perception of the Blackhawks is, wow, this organization from top to bottom is incredible. You know, you see a book by its cover, you don't know what's in some of those pages, unfortunately. And I also think that it's a shame that this city and the love of hockey, that team completely rejuvenated the love of hockey in this city. Each of those parades had 2+ million people. The TV ratings were off the charts. I was in high school and college when those cup runs happened. And I'll never forget my freshman year of high school was when they made it to the conference finals in 2009. And you had Let's Go Hawks chants in the hallways. And after every playoff win, first thing in the morning is we'd all get together in class and we'd talk about it. Every win, we would talk about it. Everyone was so bought into this. And it created so many wonderful memories. I'm a third generation Hawks fan. Fandom runs deep with my family and this team. And it hurts. It hurts seeing that something you love and hold near so dear has a big stain on it now. And I think about so many people who've been let down. So many fans are angry, sad, disgusted, mad. And it feels like something that you loved. It's like, what can you love? How many skeletons are in so many other closets? It makes you question everything. Are all my teams like this? Did other teams in the city do similar things? How many other teams out there are hiding skeletons in the closet? Not to deter away from the Blackhawks, but the Blackhawks can't be the only ones in the entire entity of sports with skeletons in their closets that haven't been seen yet. We know
Absolutely
that.
not. Absolutely
There's
not.
no way. Honestly, like I said before, what we know is probably just the tip of the iceberg when it comes to stuff like this happening in sports. I mean, look how many companies outside of sports cover up shady stuff. And you know what, Sean? I said this to other people too. Had most members of that organization tried to go and get this taken care of, but you had somebody like, whether it was a McDonough or a Bowman or somebody, like going out of their way to keep this quiet while others were putting in the effort to try to get this taken care of, then you would say, you know what? That's one big bad apple. We're not going to let that bad apple spoil the bunch. But unfortunately, those apples all had rotten cores when they were making this decision. When they met in that, wherever room they were in at the United Center, when they all actively decided not to do anything about it and to keep it quiet, you know, they all harbor responsibilities for this. And now that's on their records permanently. No matter how much other good things they did or winning they did, is that there's always going to be that stain on their shirt with that. And that stain does not come off.
Agreed.
And there's one more thing I want to say about this. I respect people's decisions on what they want to do in terms of fandom. Me personally, I'm taking a little break. I took a number of my Hawks stuff down and I just kind of put it away. I took my Hawks jerseys, shirts, hats, and I kind of just pushed it to the back of the closet. I don't want it to be in sight right now. I turned off game notifications for the time being. I'm on temporary leave. I want to see them talk the talk, walk the walk before I kind of come back, whenever that is. I'm going to just admit it, Sean. It's really hard as a lifelong fan for a team that meant so much to me, for a team that runs very deep in my family's fandom, to just walk away permanently, especially knowing that brass is gone. You know, they're not part of the organization anymore. This is going to be a stain forever. We all know that. I mean, look, Penn State, that thing's long gone, but you know, they'll always have that little stain on them. They're always going to have this little stain on this, but at least I can hope and pray that the current regime, that the current people in that organization are going to make the culture better and safer for their own players. I also see people who are like, yeah, I'm permanently done. And you know what? You do that, more power to you. That's your choice. I fully respect that. But just where I am right now, I just need to take a little break from them. And you know what? That's not that difficult because this team is a dumpster fire on the ice.
What's funny? They won tonight.
Oh, what do you do? Wow, that's their first win.
And Kaner had a hat trick.
Seriously?
My wife went to the game. So my mother-in-law's in town, and my wife was like, I want to take her to a hockey game. She likes hockey, and we'll go to Blackhawks game, and tickets are dirt cheap right now. She got $10 tickets. And she's like, should all four of us go? My wife, myself, my mother-in-law, and my daughter. And I was like, you know what? The game starts at 7, and getting down there, getting back, it's going to be super late for the kiddo. Like, I'll just stay home with the kid. You two go. And so when she got tickets, it was before this all broke. And I'm like, I'm glad, I'm never going to be able to hate the Blackhawks, but it's tough knowing what happened. And sure, the people involved are all gone, but I don't know.
Emotions are still really raw right now.
Yeah, I don't know how you I don't know how you reconcile those feelings. You're right. I don't judge anybody. If somebody's like, you know what, the people involved are out, I'm just going to keep watching. Okay. If you're like, fuck it, I'm out, period. Okay. Somewhere in the middle. I have, I'm not going to judge anybody for how they're choosing to handle this.
Mm-hmm.
But it's just a tough pill to swallow.
It is. And that's why I need to take a little break from them for a little while. Just step away for a bit. Just, let time and trust come back. I've mentioned this before. I know our rival sponsors the show, but the Wolves games are on TV. They're a good product. They're a good team to watch. That's going to be my primary hockey viewing for quite a bit for the time being. So, that's where I'm at right now. And, I still root hard for the guys like Alex DeBrincat, because I love Alex DeBrincat. And he basically flat out said, yeah, good thing Bowman's gone. So I love that guy. And, as time goes on, it's going to be a new team, a new regime. And, if they do the right things, then yeah, I'll be able to come back eventually. But, I one thing's for sure. I'm never, ever going, my type of fandom, even if I'm back to watching games, going to games, whatever, my fandom's never going to be quite the same again. I can say that. I mean, there were so many years where I was just so proud to be a Blackhawks fan. I was prouder to be a Blackhawks fan than any other team. And, I can't say I'm going to have that same pride even 10 years from now. Even if I, watch games again, go back to games again, any of that stuff, the way I feel is never going to be quite the same.
That's fair. But at least we have the Bulls.
Can I bring it up just really quick? The song. Sure. That's not the right song. Excuse me. Here we go. Okay, so tonight we just saw a freaking awesome win, as we mentioned earlier, and I'm stoked. I am stoked.
This team's already been dealt with a blow, an injury blow, and we knew that they would come a time when they have a loss because they went undefeated in the preseason. They started off 4-0 in the regular season. And you're like, okay, at some point they're going to lose. How do they bounce back from this? And they lose a really tight game to the Knicks, who the Knicks are a very good team. You know, Knicks in the power rankings are, I think, in the top 6. The Knicks are a good team. And you fought back, you clawed back into that game, and you lose on a shot that the guy hits 8 out of 10 times. And one shot is the difference between pulling that game out and winning it and losing it. And you're like, okay, they lost. They got that, a blemish on their record. How do they come back? Especially when they're facing the Jazz, who the power rankings are, they're the number 1 ranked team in basketball. And they're a team that was, I think they were the last undefeated team. And the Bulls, the Bulls take care of business, and they win that game, fairly easily.
That win against the Jazz was huge. I would go on and say that was the biggest Bulls win we've seen in years, because you had the 4-0 start, and then you lost that really close one to the Knicks. And like you said, DeMar DeRozan, you can trust the guy to make that shot. I know people said it should have been in LaVine's hands. And yes, LaVine is the number 1 guy you want in that situation taking that shot. I'm not going to disagree with anybody on that. But DeMar DeRozan is a pretty worthy guy to have that in that situation too. I just think that double clutch kind of costs him, but whatever. So you're 4-1, and people are questioning, oh, is this team for real, or do they just be bums? Then you go out and you take care of the Jazz. That right there tells you that team can compete with the big boys. And think about it, man.
I know the Jazz didn't have Mike Conley, but
they were still loaded.
They're still loaded, and the Bulls were able to compete with them and do really well. This is a Bulls team that is winning. They're able to score, and I mean, tonight should prove it to you. They're able to score some points, and they scored almost 130 points today, and they're able to play defense. And I'm not saying it's like the Thibodeau defense where you're holding teams to 85 points, but if you watch, you don't have, they're stopping the fast break points. They've got, arms in the passing lanes. They're contesting shots. They're getting the rebounds. This is a team that works really hard on defense, and Alex Caruso is a huge part of that. Ball is a huge part of that. You're even seeing Zach LaVine play better defense. This is a better defensive team. This is not like I said, it's not like the championship Bulls with Michael and Scotty and Rodman, who just three of the best defenders ever. It's not that same. It's not even the same as the Thibodeau Bulls, but they play tough defense and they don't make it easy on other teams. And their turnovers they're turning the ball over a lot less than they did the last several years. And this team doesn't quit when they're down. They don't quit. They come back.
That was the point I was going to make too about the Knicks game. Was Bulls teams of the past probably would have lost that game by 15 plus. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah, I think it's fair.
And I mean, the fact that they have this drive where they never give up, I know it sounds so cliche, but man, there's something to that. And like you said, this defense isn't the most elite out there, but when you play hard like that, when you don't give up the way you do, when you go out there and say, you know what, they got the ball, we're going to take the ball away from them, or we are going to make it hell to try to get them to score. That is the type of attitude you want from this team. And, you see people like Alex Caruso going out there and like peanut punching the ball away. That guy is everywhere. Like I said, he should play secondary for the Bears, for goodness sake. And then, you have the ability with guys like Vucevic. And, Vucevic isn't off to the greatest start. His scoring has been struggling, to say the least. But, when you see him get some big rebounds in big situations, which we've seen, having guys like that, the Bulls haven't had guys like that in a while, where you can trust them to make these plays. And we know what the Bulls' limitations are. We know that the bench isn't as high scoring as other contending teams. We did say that, in weeks past and shows past, you can have some guys that score off the bench, but, compared to a bunch of the other good teams, you saw them match up against the Knicks, and the Knicks bench kind of bullied the Bulls bench. And, we know the Bulls aren't the biggest team out there by any means. They're small compared to many other teams. But even with their weaknesses, and even with some of the size mismatches they have, the fact that they're able to at least put some solid pressure defensively on opponents, you got to give them a lot of credit for that.
Think about some of these teams that are put together, these dream teams. They don't gel right away. It takes them the better part of a season to really start gelling, and then they turn it on in the playoffs. And this Bulls team is I'm not going to say they're a dream team or, a team of all-star, but it's a team of alphas that are used to, DeMar DeRozan has been an alpha most of his career. Zach LaVine, an alpha. Lonzo Ball is an alpha. And Vooch is a guy that's used to being the stud on his team. And, it's going to take them time to figure out their roles. And for the most part, you're seeing it working out well. And I think Vooch will be fine. You just got to give him a little time. But man, once this team gels, it's going to be real tough to compete with them. And you're right. I think the Achilles heel is that second unit. And especially now that Patrick Williams is out. And, I had a note I wanted to talk about of what you do with him. And my thoughts were going to be, hey, why don't you move this guy to the second unit? Not because he's not deserving, a talented guy and one of the 5 best players. It's got to be hard for a 20-year-old kid to be playing on that.
Yeah.
With those guys.
With
maybe
veterans like that. Yeah.
Maybe it's better for him to be on the second unit where he can take those opportunities and really grow his confidence. And now it's like, okay, well, he's going to be out 4 to 6 months. You're hoping it's the 4, so you can get him back sometime before the playoffs. But, this really does hurt because the Bulls don't have the most depth. And we knew that going in there. And Kobe White should be returning soon.
They need him back. I mean, you need someone on that bench where you can say, you know what? We need you to put the ball in the basket. We need someone that has the ability to shoot the 3 as well as drive to the hoop. I mean, that's getting him back is going to be pretty important.
And I know his limitations as well, but just having that secondary scoring, I hope that does lift the Bulls up a little bit. But I do think this is a very talented team. And, as it stands right now, they have the best record in the Eastern Conference.
Yep, they're 6-1.
Actually, they have the best record in basketball.
When's the last time we could say that? It's been a while. Also, just mentioning the bench, my boy Ayo Dosunmu, 6 for 6 field goals, 2 3-pointers, 14 points tonight. He was balling tonight.
Yeah, I mean that's huge. You don't have a very deep bench. You really don't. Um, and I wouldn't be shocked to see the Bulls trying to make a trade at some point.
Neither would I.
Um, you probably want to see what Kobe White brings to you, but right now you're looking at you're like 10 guys deep, maybe. Let's see, 2, 5, maybe 8, 9 guys deep. You're not very deep. And if you get any more injuries, that could be the big problem. Or when you start resting guys for maintenance, that's where you're running some trouble. They're gonna have to start working some guys in there to build that depth a little bit.
Yeah, no doubt. No doubt. I want to share a stat with you real quick. So the biggest lead for the Celtics tonight, and it was in the second half, was 19 points. And in the third, with 30.6 seconds left, Boston had a 98.4% winning probability. And the Bulls ended up winning 128 to 114. So they ended up winning by more than double digits. And they had like a 2% chance of winning this game at one point.
I mean, that's incredible.
Also, another great stat from this game. We all liked getting DeMar DeRozan, right? Collectively, a well-liked move, obviously. Fair
It's
to
funny.
say.
It was not a well-liked move around the basketball world when it happened, and I think
it wasn't. But by Bulls fans, we liked it, right?
I mean, I did, and I think it's paying it really well. It's
been
worked
as
out
good
really
as he's been as good as you want. He scored 37 points tonight.
And
this is coming off a great game against the Jazz.
Yeah, he's been a difference maker. He's a legit scoring threat. Zach doesn't have to be the primary scoring opportunity. That's why I was not upset when he took that shot versus the Knicks, because within 2 steps inside the 3-point line, he's just deadly.
Mm-hmm.
And I have no qualms about him taking that shot because he's a legit scoring threat, and it just didn't work out. But I don't knock that. If you have Alex Caruso taking that shot, I have nothing against Alex Caruso. I go, maybe you have better options. But if it's not Levine, it's DeRozan. Those are the two that I'm confident I believe in them making that shot. So he's been a huge reason that the Bulls are where they are. And I don't think they're anywhere near as good without him. And so now it just comes to, can people stay healthy, and can they develop anybody on that bench?
Yeah, absolutely. I think too, once you get Kobe White back, and like you said, his limitations. But I'm really curious to see how he operates in this regime. I like to think that there's room for him to really grow with this regime and the players around him. I really do. I like to think that.
Yeah, I'm trying to see. I'm just looking for any articles about the Bulls' depth and any rumors that are going on about potential trade targets. It's a little early for that, but it's interesting to see where they're going to go because, it's funny. On one hand, we're all talking about Patrick Williams needed to be better, but while that's true, it also sucks to lose him because he's still one of their top 5 players.
Right. Absolutely.
And to lose him on a cheap shot foul.
Well, at the end of the day, too, it really just sucks for him. Like, this is his big prime opportunity to play with all these great players, with this great coaching staff. And just for him on a personal level, it stinks. It really does.
Yeah, it does. And it was such a fluky thing because I watched it happen. I was watching it live and he went down and I thought he got poked in the eye.
Yeah, me too.
And I was
honestly, me too.
And I was like, oh, heel poked in the eye. Maybe he goes and sits for a while. And then he's holding his wrist. And I'm like, huh, that's weird. And then like wrist injury. I'm like, okay. Then later they're like, oh, it's significant wrist injury. I'm like, oh, well, that's not good. That took a turn for the worse.
Yeah. Wow. Just really quickly, one more thing I'm seeing. The Bulls finished that game with a 38-9 run against the Celtics. 38-9. Wow.
I mean, that's great. It's tough to do against anybody.
Especially on the road in Boston. That is not an easy place to play.
So I'm looking at NBC Sports, and they said best case scenario for Patrick Williams would be returning in just after the All-Star break. That would be huge. That's the truth.
Yeah, we just got to see what happens until then, if they decide to make any other moves or whatnot. You would like best case scenario. I just would hate to rush him back and risk any other injury.
Yeah. Now I'm trying to see if I could see how his surgery went because he supposedly had it on Halloween surgery. See if it was successful.
Breaking: Patrick Williams' leg is now on his arm.
Oh man.
So I'm going to give you, while you're looking at that, I'm going to give you the current Eastern Conference standings. Bulls 6-1, Heat 5-1, Knicks 5-2, 76ers 5-2, Wizards 5-2, Raptors 5-3, Hornets 5-3, Nets 4-3, Hawks 4-3, Cavs 4-4, Bucks 3-4, Celtics 2-5, Pacers 2-6, Pistons 1-5, Magic 1-6. The Bulls have an 857 winning percentage through 7 games. Best start we've seen in a long time.
And they've got the next 3 games are going to tell you a lot there. Got 2 back-to-back against the Sixers, then the Nets. You got the Warriors coming up. So you've got
it's going to be tough.
You've got some brutal games coming up, but I like it. I like to see it because I think this team is very good, and you might see some L's that get hung up on them, but I think this team can really compete. And I mean, you look. Let's see, in their conference, the Knicks are legit. I think. Heat are legit. I think
so.
I'm not saying the Knicks are top 3 in the conference, but I think they're a legit playoff team. Heat are really good.
Mm-hmm.
Sixers are good.
Mm-hmm. Bucks will get their act together.
Bucks will get their act together. The Nets will get their act together. I don't know if the Nets will be the team that we saw last year, but
no, but they still should be pretty good.
Yeah. Hawks be better.
Raptors will be a solid team.
But I think the Bulls are anywhere from 3 to 6 in that range.
Yeah, absolutely. I think with this talent, yeah.
I mean, we're still super early into this. It's 80 something game schedule. We're 7 games in. It's tough to not even 10%. We're extrapolating, but we're seeing a lot of good things, and I think there's a lot of room for growth on this team, especially if Kobe White comes back healthy and soon. And if we can start getting Vucevic his shot back on target, this team could be real deadly.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that, like you said, with potential growth, we're already seeing the good stuff. You could grow even better. Then we're going to be looking at, again, I don't think they're going to win a championship, but a team that can make some noise down the stretch. And it's really exciting. It's a lot of fun. This city needs some good sports this winter. And the Bulls are going to be that source, because you're not going to get it from the Bears. You're not going to get it from the Blackhawks. And we might have to deal with a lockout in baseball. So who the hell knows what the offseason is going to look like? The Bulls are going to be here for our entertainment. And I think the city's all in. I think everyone is buying into this. They need something to buy into. And, the city's here standing by watching this team. And I'm seeing an excitement that we haven't seen since the prime years of Derrick Rose. I mean, even in the prime years of Derrick Rose, as hyped up as people were around them, and you had a really good team win 60-plus games in 2011, something is really hitting different about this team. And it is really, really exciting.
Well, is there anything else you wanted to talk about?
No, I think I've said my piece. Next week, if we finally have time, I really do want to discuss some of the new Cubs front office stuff, but I don't think we have any more time today.
Yeah, it's I do want, because we have a hitting coach now.
We do have a hitting coach and a GM and an assistant GM. And, by next week, the World Series is going to be over.
I saw a meme, and it had a map of the United States, and it was all like one color, and it said places rooting for the Braves. And then it had one little dot in Houston. It said places that are rooting for the Astros.
I saw that too. And
I'm like, you know what? That's pretty accurate. I'm totally rooting for the Braves. And I honestly, not to harp too much on this, is I think their best opportunity was last night. Because you got to go to Houston now, and it's got to be in the back of your mind. Are they going to cheat on this? They're already a good team at home. And you get that psyche that's in your head. Same thing happened to the Cubs, the Bartman year, where once you get a hiccup, it's tough to get over that mental hurdle. I'm hoping that doesn't happen with the Braves, but I'm really rooting for them. I know several Braves fans, and I'm like, I'm with your team on this one.
Well, I mean, look, when you hit a grand slam in the first inning of a potential clinching game when you're up 3-1, and to lose that game, that's got to feel pretty deflating.
It's happened twice this postseason.
Isn't that nuts?
Yeah, it happened with the Rays too. They had a first inning grand slam and lost the game. I like the pitching matchup for Atlanta in tomorrow's game. But it's going to be a good one. I'm really hoping the Braves can pull this out.
We'll see what happens.
I hate the Astros. But that's going to do it for this episode of Bill Swerski Sports Talk Chicago. I want to thank everybody so much for listening. Please subscribe however you listen to podcasts, whether it's iTunes, Stitcher, YouTube, Google Play, Spotify, etc. Follow us on social media at Swerski Sports, Facebook.com/Swerski Sports, SwerskiSports.com, AlexPatSportsChat.blogspot.com, AlexPatSportsChat on Facebook. Share this podcast with your friends. That's how we grow the show. And again, thank you guys so much for listening. And until next time, bear down.
Cubs win! What a lucky break! The good Lord wants the Cubs to win!
We thank Ditka and God for all they have provided.
Cubs win! Cubs win! Cubs win!
Oh, I don't want her. You can have her. She's a Packer fan. She can't fit in my van.
And she looks like
Remember, New Yorkers, smoking crack is not legal on planes. Bears 31 to -7.
the Bears. Oh, when the Bears go bearing down.